In a secluded village deep in the Indonesian jungle, there is a ritual so strange that it defies logic. Death is not the end. For the Mentawai people, death is only a transformation. And to die for the first time, you must live again in your own funeral. A living funeral. Have you ever heard of it? This mysterious and profound ritual will leave you questioning, do we really understand death? To understand this ritual, we must first explore the way of life of the Mentawai people, an ancient tribe from the island of Siberut, Indonesia. For the Mentawai, everything is deeply connected to nature. They believe that spirits of ancestors, forests, and rivers are an inseparable part of life. When a Mentawai person dies, they do not truly depart. They simply transition into another state, becoming spirits who watch over their family and village. However, to fully enter the world of ancestors, a person must live again in their funeral. This ritual, called the living funeral, marks the end of one life cycle. The living funeral begins when the Mentawai people believe that someone has died, but their soul has not fully transitioned into the afterlife. Their family arranges a ritual inside the deceased's home. But in this ritual, the deceased is not truly dead. In fact, they are still living in the sacred rites. The ritual begins with a funeral rehearsal. A family member will lie in the coffin, dressed in burial clothes. Another living person will be chosen to live again as the deceased, representing their spirit in the ceremony. At this point, the living person will act out the deceased's life before they passed away. What's extraordinary is that if the living person cannot come back in this ritual, they are seen as an unsettled spirit who will never find peace. For the Mentawai, death is not the end, it is merely a transition. The living funeral ritual is their way of showing that life and death are continuous. Death is not the end of life, it is simply a stage in the cycle of rebirth. But there is something strange. As the living person returns in the funeral, they must confront their deepest fear, the possibility that they cannot die during the ritual. In this moment, they begin to realize that death is a test to understand life. By living again in the funeral, they not only reconnect with the deceased spirit, but also uncover the deeper truths of life, that life and death are interconnected. For the Mentawai, ancestors are protectors. They are not distant spirits, but integral parts of their everyday life. The living funeral is their way of connecting with their ancestors, keeping the spirits alive, and ensuring their safety for future generations. Every detail of the ritual is performed with precision, every act honoring the spirit of the deceased. As the living person dies in the funeral, they become a link between the world of the living and the ancestors. The chants, dances, and prayers performed during the ritual represent the spiritual fusion of past and present. And, most importantly, Death is not the end. It is the continuation of values, spirit, and belief. This ritual is not just a spiritual event. It is a journey that each person must go through to understand life and death. To live again in the funeral is not about suffering or fear. It is about freedom. The Mentawai show that death is not a thing to fear, but rather a gateway to eternal truth. Life and death are two sides of the same coin, and we must realize that only by understanding death can we truly appreciate life. If this story made you reflect on the cycle of life and death, hit that like button and share to help spread these sacred and mysterious rituals from around the world. Make sure to subscribe, because next time we'll explore another deep and sacred tradition where the line between life and death is not so clear.